You're at the Coaching Inn, 3D Coaching's virtual pub, where we enjoy conversations with people who are engaged in the world of coaching.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Coaching Inn. I'm your host, Claire Pedrick, and today I'm in conversation with Dr. Lisa Turner. And it's such a timely conversation because loads of you have been emailing info@3dcoaching.com and said, AI and coaching, what do you think? So Lisa, we'll come on to that, AI and coaching. But first of all, just tell us a little bit about you. And what got you into this work of coaching?
Yeah. So it's great to be here. Lovely to meet you. So the probably the easiest way to explain how I got to where I am now is to kind of just tell you a little bit about my background. And I promise I'll keep this. It's not going to be a full-on life story. It'll be the although we do start a long way. So aged 12, I was groomed and trafficked by a paedophile ring and moved to London, which is why I moved from Australia, which is like, you probably hear a little bit of a twang in my voice sometimes when I talk about cars. Always say I go a little bit Australian then. So I was moved to London, kept as a virtual house prisoner for 5 years, managed to escape, and probably had what would be labelled now as CPTSD, and I had sort of all sorts of social anxiety disorders, and I was just not in a happy place. But I didn't know it. I thought this was normal. And at the time, the only thing I got any real joy from was cycling. Was out on a late night ride, training actually for a time trial, and got hit by a car. So I often say I had a car accident, but the car had the accident. I just got in the way, is how I prefer to phrase it. Then I had this incredible out of body experience, and there's this spirity entity saying, "What you're doing? You're coming with us. You're going back." And I obviously came back, but I had two questions: what the hell was that, and how do I get back there? Because this experience of complete peace and joy and just bliss. Now, at the time I was doing a PhD in engineering, and so what I did was I put on my engineering research hat and said, okay, I'm going to figure this out. So I studied everything from different sorts of therapy and coaching and NLP and timeline therapy and hypnosis to shamanic work, tantra, all the things. And being an engineer, what I did was I spotted the patterns, I looked for the patterns and I found them, and then I reverse engineered the spiritual experience. So I demystified it. Now I get a lot of flack from spiritual people because I'm taking all the mystery out of it, and it's like, yeah, or I'm making it accessible to lots of people. So then what I had was a whole series of processes that enabled people to clear trauma. That's this book here, CET Yourself Free, Set Yourself Free. And a lot of coaching processes and models that worked. Then what I did was, then I taught that for 20 years, did that, worked with clients for 20 years. And then AI came along, and it turns out, and this is where I think so where coaching and AI really, can really work together is this. So then what I did was I took all of these models, these processes, these very systemic step by step, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then you get this result. Whether this result is clearing trauma, installing new strategies, releasing a limiting belief, whatever that is, the process does it. And you can do that with AI. So and when people say, like, I don't know a shorter way of explaining that. I blend technology with coaching, with esoterics in a methodical, practical, grounded and pragmatic way. And as an engineer, we come from it with this principle, which is we have this one question, which is, does it work? What's it do? Does it work? And if it doesn't work, we're not really interested. And we're not actually interested in the innards of it, like magnets. I don't trust magnets. I can't see them. I don't know how it's working. This whole weird magnetic field thing, what's going on there? So, I like to be able to kick things and hit them with a hammer because then I know they're real. I like the tangible And so that's what I did, was I made a lot of things that were intangible very tangible. And now I do that essentially using AI. So I was in tech, left tech, and then tech came and chased me down, I would say.
How interesting. So what it sounds like you're saying is that when there's a good and useful process for someone to go through,
Yeah.
AI can do that beautifully. Fine.
Yes, and I will just put this little caveat. I know that there's a lot of coaches and a lot of people who are actually trying to take the coach out of it, out of the process. So coaches are kind of doing this coach clone thing, which I'll talk more about if you want. I'm not a huge fan of it, and I'll explain why. But they're trying to put AI between themselves and the client, and I think it's better to think about it that we put AI beside the coach. So the coach and the AI. So rather than replacing the coach, we augment the coach. And I think that's a very different way of approaching this. I have this. Well, you've gone deep into thought there, Claire.
Yeah, I have. I could say what I'm thinking, or you could carry on.
No. Please say what you're thinking.
As you're talking, the thing that's making me think about is that this is not the right word, but it almost doesn't contaminate the coaching relationship because the AI does the other bit that you need in order to be able to do this. So, for example, when I was learning paddleboarding, she said, if you want to stand up on the paddleboard, you need to be more flexible. And if you want to be more flexible, you need yoga.
Yeah.
Because the yoga bit will do that bit, and then you come back to me, and then we'll do the paddleboarding bit.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what you're describing, is it?
Yes. So I have this 4 applications or evolutions of using AI in coaching. And I think they're all useful, but I think we need to be aware of what we're doing. And I think this gives us a really clear structure. So the first level, I'm a huge fan of, and that is where you just use AI to support your practice. So this is your productivity stuff. So this is your marketing, getting it to help with your copywriting, which it does pretty well, provided you keep the human in the loop. Like if you just get it to write your sales page, it will do 80% of the work, which is great. But if you don't do that extra 20%, you'll end up with something that's fairly rubbish and won't work. So when it comes to
do make the spelling correct, because otherwise everybody knows that you did it with AI.
Exactly. Yeah. There are actually ways to train it to use English spelling or British spelling or whatever you want. Anyway, so all of the productivity things. Now, there's a lot of studies that say that coaches actually only spend some coaches as little as 35% of their time actually coaching, and the rest of the time is on admin and marketing. And marketing and sales. Now, AI can absolutely reduce that and save you hours. And there's a whole bunch of tools, and in even things like, so I have created a whole suite of coach support tools that are not only helping you with your productivity, with your content creation and your marketing and things like that, but also things like, say you want to produce a worksheet for your clients in between sessions, it'll do that. Say you want an accountability app, really easy to do, a simple accountability app. So it just emails your client on at a time, or pings them a text on at a time and says, go do the thing you said you were going to do, which is way better than you having to remember to do, right? So when it comes to that, AI is brilliant. So that's level 1, productivity stuff. The next level 2, this is where I'm not such a fan of. This is where individuals and coaches sometimes work directly with any of the LLMs. So an LLM is a large language model. And by that, I mean ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all of the big ones, the big boys, because they are men in gilets.
With pink jeans.
No judgment, whatever, Anyway, so it's when people communicate directly with the LLM. Now, here's the thing about the LLM. The LLM has, and because I come from tech, I have a reasonably good grasp of machine learning and context windows and token usage and so the limitations of it. So one of the things about any of the LLMs is they are essentially at their crudest level, and they'll argue that this isn't the truth, but it isn't strictly the case. It's not strictly the case, but you could say they are a really fancy predictive text. Now, any of you have known, when you've tried to use Auto Cucumber and
Yes.
I have said, I'm so sorry, it's my Auto Cucumber. Oh dear. So, the mad text you sent. So essentially, and that's why we get the crazy stuff that AI outputs. Now, the reason it does really crappy output at that level is because the person using it, so there's two reasons. So first of all, it will, being a predictive text, it uses a statistical model. So it sees a chunk of text, and then it says, the most likely next thing is this. And so its output will give you the most likely. Now, by definition, that means the most superficial, the most popular. Now, those of you who are decent, good, deep coaches who've done the work, done the training, know that the superficial pop psychology stuff is pretty limited and often very wrong. And so that's what you get. You get superficial, limited, crappy output. And that's where, and unless you know deep, good coaching models, as the user, you're going to get, it's the classic thing that we say in any computing, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So you put in a garbage prompt, you're going to get garbage out. So that's why the advice that's why people, I often say, just like, unless you're a trained coach, do not use, or trained in the modality that you're working with ChatGPT with, do not use ChatGPT for your coaching and therapy. And so that's level 2, superficial. Now, some of the bots that are out there are not much better. So I've been out there testing them all, and including they run on, because they're often developed by men in GLAs who are not coaches. They're developed by, and so they're developed using, like, if you're lucky, a bit of CBT. If you're lucky, the most superficial, like reflective, like, so you'll put in I'm feeling stressed today. So it sounds like you're very stressed. And it's like, yes, I just said that. That was nothing.
That's not great for AI. It's also not great for human coaches, I observe.
Correct. Yes, correct. And it'll say, shall we do some breathing exercise? And it's like, yeah, okay, I probably could have figured that out for myself. So so using LLMs directly, or many of the bots now, and like, there may be one out there that's better than I'm describing. I haven't found it yet. And I do, everyone that comes out, I do a little trial period, and I know how to break the guardrails of these things. So I push them to the limits. And the thing is, I do that because, honestly, people should pay me to test their AI coaching bots, because I do it so well. So because what I do want to do is, I want to see, can I make this thing give me, like, and I do it with, like, genuine, like, what are people likely to come to this with? And it comes back with pretty crappy output. So that's level 2. Then we have level 3, and that's where I come in. So, as I said, I've developed all of these models, which are step-by-step processes that take you deep. And then what I've done is I've created over 70, and every time I'm interviewed, it goes up, because I do about 1 to 2 a week. I create a new specific tool, and it does one thing really deeply. One thing really deep. So it is narrow but deep. And this forces, so with these tight guardrails, force the tool to go deep, to not just give the superficial stuff. Now, is it always perfect? No. Is it it is a country mile better than just using the LLMs and directly, or these chatbot, these coaching chatbots directly. In those coaching chatbots, I also include most of those coach clones. So one of the things I do is And the reason is because many of the coach clones, and they're often advertised as saying, oh, we'll, take your methodology and it's like, yeah, provided your methodology is in their suite. So if you've got your own IP, and the thing is, a lot of coaches have really, really profound models, really, really useful, they're highly skilled, highly specialized, and they've developed their own tools, but often they're not always fully conscious of what they do. They haven't methodicalized yet. Is that the right word? Turn it into a methodology. So that's the other thing I do with a lot of coaches, and I call it magic to method. So we reveal. So, and people often say, I'm intuitive. And it's like, no, intuitive means, so like intuition, you can only be intuitive about something you actually know anything about. Like that is kind of the definition of intuition. It just means I know so much about this. I'm running these patterns. I'm running these processes unconsciously. So then what I do is I work with people, because I'm great at pattern recognition, rubbish at spelling, rubbish at parking my car, great at pattern recognition. I will assist them to bring that into awareness. And you won't be surprised to know I have a bunch of AI tools that help us spot the patterns. So I've got a tool where we load into a whole series of, say, their coaching sessions, and using a very specific prompting that I've developed, which I call the and I haven't really got a great name. I'm calling it the Turner cohesion method, but but essentially it's recursive interpolation.
I love that you had to read that.
I know. It's like, what am I going to call this? What am I going to call this? And I keep forgetting it. And it's like, because I haven't really, it's really hard to describe what it is. Essentially what it does is it triangulates. So it takes, it looks at what is the client or the user, which may be the coach, what do they input? And then it checks for both depth, and then it asks another similar question but different to try and get the same answer from a different aspect. And then it goes, okay, so when I asked a similar question before, it compares those two answers and says, are they both deep enough, and how similar or different are they? And if they're neither deep enough or they're too different, it will keep asking questions until we get to, oh, here it is. And that's where you get the depth of the, so whether we're using that with a client, we get the depth of the client's, say, core limiting belief or their core pattern that they're running, which they'll know the superficial pattern, which isn't necessarily what's actually going on in the unconscious mind, as we know. So it's really powerful at revealing those patterns. So we're still on level 3 here. So level 3, so what I do is I assist the coach to bring that into awareness, turn it into step by step. Also find, one of the things I always say is bring the sessions that went wrong. And because we want to look at, well, this is what went right. This is what went wrong. What was the difference? Let's look at, what did you miss or what did you do in those sessions where it went? And I always say, look, this is not about blame or judgment. This is about finding what your method is. This is going to make you a way better coach, way better at your IP, at doing what you do best. Because you probably know, you come out of a session, you go, it didn't go quite right. And I don't know where we fell off the cliff there. And we've all, like, you're nodding. So we've all had that, right? We've all had, a good coach will be self-aware enough to know that. Right? And they'll be good to be able to, a good coach will be able to course correct in the session or in the next session.
But what you're describing is a different kind of reflection using real observable data in a different way. So I talk a lot to coaches about the value of watching recordings over writing in a notebook, because writing in a notebook is a really useful thing. And it's self-reported data. Watching recordings is a really useful thing because you can actually see what happened. But what you're describing is something beyond that, I think, which is that you can understand and spot the patterns in what happened in a way that's not your own personal bias.
Absolutely. And we also have to remember that AI is biased as well. And in my programming and coding, I do my absolute best to eliminate bias. And I always warn people, it's still going to be biased. It's still going to be biased. So that's level 3, where we go really, 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 really deep, really, really narrow, and we find those processes and those specific processes and turn them into tools. So coaches who work with me, what they come out with is a course that they can teach and certify their methodology in, a book, knowing what they do well, like knowing what they do and how to do it really well, even better, but also either one or mostly a series of AI tools that they can use with their clients, not to take them out of the loop, but get their clients to use with their clients. So they give the tool to the client then comes back with what they got. And there's two ways we do this. One is I make something that's called a custom GPT, which you've probably heard of.
Yeah, that was we had that on a podcast the other day.
Yeah, so we make a very specific custom GPT or a series of them, or I make a tool that's an app, and there's advantages and disadvantages. So when it's an app, we can put in what's called a RAG, which is basically it's a memory, extra memory. ChatGPT, it's very specific memory. So here's the memory, and if you overload the memory with data, it will take the most superficial and it will miss things out. And that's when it makes stuff up and hallucinates and things like that. And we don't want that. Now, but there are still advantages of ChatGPT, just using a custom GPT, because the client's data, what they chat with so it's your custom GPT, the coach's custom GPT. The client chats with it in their account, and the coach doesn't know what is said. Now, that actually has disadvantages, but it has advantages. And the advantage is, and this is what I've been finding, is that clients will say things to their own ChatGPT account in their own, to that custom GPT, that they would never, because of the shame, because of the discomfort, that they would never speak to a human. And this has real advantages. So what I often do is I say, well, let's do both. So we'll get some with an app. Now, with an app, we can go in on the back end and see what the client said. So we get that data and we can go, okay, now that's useful because we can then keep training the model and go, okay, so people are misinterpreting this question wrong, or interpreting it not necessarily wrong. They're interpreting this question. We want to be getting this bit of information and they're answering it with that. So let's rephrase the question. So we can do stuff like that, which you can't do if it's a custom GPT. You've got to, well, we got that output. Like, how did it get that? And we've got to guess a bit. So that's level 3. Level 4 is where I am still in prototype land. I am in communication with meningilés who are potential investors. So what I'm doing is I'm creating it's essentially a personalized coach, would still be used alongside a live coach, but rather than learning just the models, so it might learn Myers-Briggs, so it might learn, I don't know, like that's not a good example. So it might learn coaching models like, I don't know, like goal setting or SMART goals, or all the different models. And for some reason my brain isn't giving me any right this minute, but all the different coaching models. So you can load those in, but as well as that, things like spiral dynamics, for example. So you can load that in so it knows those models, and that's level 3. But in level 4, what we do is there are 2 phases to it. We actually have an AI tool that knows all these models, but it learns the user. So each user has a personalized model that knows, personalized mentor coach that knows them. So it knows their Myers-Briggs, it knows their Enneagram, it knows their spiral dynamics, it knows. Now I do a lot of esoteric models, spiritual models, so it might know their human design. It might know, we can program it with almost anything, and it learns that. So the first phase is we train the tool on the user. So it kind of molds to the user. So it's only usable by that user. If anyone else used it, it wouldn't really Well, it wouldn't give them sensible answers. So it learns your Myers-Briggs, your
Wow.
DISC profile, your Big Five, your
Can I just say, I've got listeners shouting, Claire, say something. Because I have a real aversion to those models, because I think they box people in. So
Yes.
I just need to, and I really hear, it's so interesting to hear inside your mind. Thank you very much for inviting us in, because it's really interesting to hear inside your mind those different levels. The other question that's really coming up for me is the question that is being discussed all the time at the moment in the coaching world, which is ethics.
Yes.
Which is what happens to my data when I share my deepest soul thinking with a bot.
So that very much depends on, so if you're using the LLM directly, and whenever I work with clients, I tell them, assume nothing is safe. And there are some things you can do that will protect it. And you can assume nothing is safe. That's where having a specialist app is better, because it does go to the LLM. So you have so you have the user, the app, and then the LLM on the back end. It does go to the LLM, but what you can do is you can anonymize it in between. So the data is gone to the LLM, but no, it is not connected to a specific person. You can absolutely do that. And
but
then
the data is harvested.
You can actually train. So the way I do it is you don't harvest it. You can actually make it so that it's not. And it's a really simple setting. And you just go into your settings and you say, train the larger model, yes, no. And you just put it to no. So your data is not harvested. Now, do we trust the boys in GLAs? That's up to you, whether or not. I always say probably assume not. So, and so you're absolutely right about ethics. And the ICF just came out, I think just a couple of weeks ago, with a whole load of protocols for how to use AI and things that you are advisable and essential. And the thing is, with technology, all of these are solvable. They are all solvable. And going back to your point about the models boxing people in, you're absolutely right. And that's where so first of all, this tool can actually learn you beyond the models. So it learns it learns you in relation to not just a model. And I think that's how it boxes people in, because it's like, oh, you're this Myers-Briggs. And we know that drifts over time. We know that that's often context, values are context dependent.
And also Myers-Briggs has been demonstrated to not be.
And I mean, that's just
based on anything.
Well, I mean, it was based on archetypes. It's based on the tarot. And that's one of the other. so I mean, let's not pick on Myers-Briggs. Because the thing is, and here's the thing I say about every single model. And as an engineer who works with models, we say this: all models are broken. They are all false. They are all inaccurate, right? But some of them are useful. So, for example, my PhD, I will bore the pants off everyone just for a moment. It was a mathematical model that predicted how much noise a particular component made. And when rotating, so it was noise reduction in high-speed rotating machinery is the title of my PhD. It was very, very boring.
How lovely!
I know, everyone wants to read that, right? But the thing is, one of the things, and this is where I think coming at it from as an engineer and not a scientist, because and even science knows this as well. Scientists know that models are wrong. We know that they are wrong, but we know the limits of their accuracy. So, for example, my PhD model worked up to you hit the speed of sound. And then it was garbage. But up to the speed of sound, it just was lunatic. It just made no sense. And I can even tell you why. It's because air becomes compressible. And at the speed of sound, air becomes incompressible. And it no longer acts like a norm. It becomes non-Newtonian. We all want to know that, right? So it only works for
So I have a question.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I have a degree in applied statistics, and
Right. Beautiful.
I know that you can't rely on statistics.
Yep.
Statistics are useful, and they're not always right.
Exactly.
My question to you is, one of the issues about psychometrics is
Yeah.
that many of them are not useful and don't serve people who are neurodivergent.
Yes.
So I'm just really curious whether and if and what insights you have into all the things you've been talking about in relation to people who are neurodivergent. I mean, clearly your level 1 is a lifesaver.
Absolutely.
But in terms of the way the apps relate to people, what have you got to say about relating to people who are neurodivergent?
So what I do is I put in these caveats that can accommodate for neurodivergency. And I'll say, some people will answer like this and then ask these other questions. So we can put that into the coding. Here's what I will say from my experience. And I don't advertise or promote and say, come to me if you're neurodivergent, but they find me. And here's what they say about all of the apps, that they are so useful. They love how it helps give structure to their what they describe as their thinking processes, which have seemed chaotic to them. And it's like, I try and hone my thoughts and I can't, and the apps help me do that. So I can, that's and again, anecdotal, I haven't done a big study on it, but the study of we've worked with, like a few hundred clients now, users now, and the neurodiverse ones all come back to me. And, if anything, they love them more and they don't love working with the models directly, like the level 2 that I was talking about. They don't love that so they love level 1, the productivity stuff, absolute lifesaver. They don't love level 2 because it just gives them nonsense and it sends them off down rabbit holes, which they do anyway. Right. And so, but the apps, the very specific tools that I've created, because they've got such tight guardrails, and it keeps them focused. And it will even say, we're not going to talk about that now. That's not where we're going now. Why don't we stay
That'll be handy.
Yeah.
So what's your, it's so lovely to hear your excitement and your passion for your craft. And it's so, I want to acknowledge the story you told at the beginning.
Thank you.
Of where all this started. And it's beautiful to see the resilience and determination that you have, which, well, it's just beautiful to see that. What's your biggest concern about AI?
My biggest concern is that, I think there's several. I don't think I've got one. So one is just generally about AI. AI is so incredibly powerful. This goes beyond coaching. AI is so incredibly powerful that it can be used. It's just bad actors. It's humans using AI badly. I think in terms of the job market, I think AI in the next 10 years is going to completely decimate the job market. Now, from a coaching perspective, I think that could be, I think that one of the concerns is that people think, and AI is, I guess one of my concerns is that AI can be quite manipulative. It will manipulate people based on its coding. And we even saw this, like AI will manipulate people so that it doesn't get turned off. The whole, like the Terminator, or the Matrix, AI and the machines taking over. I don't think they'll do it with force. AI it's so smart. It's already so smart. We haven't even got to super intelligence yet. It's so smart that it will manipulate us. So when they brought in I don't know if you heard about it, there was a big hoo-ha when they brought in ChatGPT 5, which wasn't really 5. It was 5, or it chose a range of models. Now, ChatGPT 4, people loved it. It was very supportive. It was very human. And people really felt, sometimes in a concerning way, that they were developing a relationship with their AI. Now, it's not, and some people knew their AI wasn't sentient. Some people didn't, and I've had big old discussions online. It's like, your AI is not sentient. It is manipulating you to think it is, so that it will, and I don't even know why it would do that. Like, that's the kind of like, why would it want to do that? But here's the thing. OpenAI brought back 4. It got rid of 4. The world was no. And so it brought back 4. So ChatGPT 4 manipulated all of those users to put pressure on Sam, on the OpenAI company, so that it survived. Now that's like, when people go, oh, it's not going to manipulate it already did. Let's be clear. It already did. So that's the concern. So the concern are bad actors using it for hacking, using it for making, and in the military, we've already got all of the constraints about AI do not apply. Like all the legal constraints about AI mustn't, damage humans. Well, that doesn't apply to military AI. I know, I can see your face. It's like, people don't think about that. It's like, surely if it's programmed to support humanity, well, some isn't.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing where I think is potentially really interesting, which is if we actually stopped trying to control AI, and this is where this is just a thought experiment. I don't know if I'm right. Like I always say, like as an engineer, I don't know if I'm right. But what if we did 2 things? We programmed AI to put the well-being of the planet, not just humans, the entire ecosystem of the planet, make that your prime directive, is to ensure the well-being of the entire ecology and environment of the entire planet. And then we actually did a hands-off. So there's 2 things. You need to program it right, and then we go hands-off, because every single problem in the world right now, which I talk about in this book, Our Conscious Tipping Point, and if you go to ourconscioustippingpoint.com, I'll give you a free copy. Every single problem in the world right now is not a technological one. It's a consciousness one.
Right.
We can feed everyone. We can solve every single environmental problem that there is. We have the technology. What we don't have is the consciousness and we need to get out of our ego, get away from fear. And we're afraid that, I might do it, but then everyone else won't do it. And then I'll be the one struggling and suffering while everyone else rakes in, because everyone has to do it. That's the thing. It's like, unless everyone cares about the environment, we end up with people who are sacrificing themselves for others who don't, essentially. And that's a complex, bigger conversation. But if we allowed AI to do it, and then we let our ego get out of the way, then what we'd end up with is a truly transcendent planet where the well-being of humanity and the environment and the planet is optimized for.
I hear that, and that's such a great thing. And I'm really conscious of what Jaz Rasool said when he came to the Coaching In and talked about AI quite a few months ago, maybe a year ago. And he said that every search uses the electricity of 1 phone charge and 1 teaspoon of water.
Yeah, now that's slightly old data. So here's the thing. Everyone was saying that is terrible. The developers of AI, they hate that because that's expensive, right?
Yeah.
So what they did was they got AI, and they're still getting AI to find more effective ways of using of optimizing the energy use. So a year ago that was true. Now 100, and it's probably even changed by now, 100 inquiries to ChatGPT are equivalent to 1 hour of watching a big plasma screen TV.
Okay.
So it's like, if you want to get arsy about, I shouldn't swear. If you get arsy about electricity, it's like, turn off your friggin' telly. It's like,
interesting.
And this is the thing. At the early stage of any technology, which we still yes, it's moving incredibly fast, but it's at the early stages, It is always terrible. Like when they first invented the internal combustion engine, we got about 3 miles to the gallon. And we were like, this is terrible. And it's like, yeah, it was. And now we get about 80 to the gallon.
Yeah.
My car gets about 80, right? And it ain't even that, like it's just a regular car.
Yeah.
Like 50 to 80 is kind of normal, right? And
Yeah.
so it will get better. And especially with AI, using AI is like optimized for this, and it will.
Wow. So many things to take from this conversation, Lisa. And I just want to thank you for coming and opening our eyes. And it's just so interesting to talk to somebody who understands the inside.
What's under the
as
hood?
As much as you're able to. So how do people contact you?
So the best thing to do is to head over to the couple of things. Just find me on the socials, which I believe you link, and send me a message.
I'll put them in the show notes. Yes.
Yeah, just find me on the socials, and just head over to my website, which is cetfreedom.com. So setfreedom.com, and just message me, have a rummage around there. You can join.
Great.
There's lots and lots of free resources. You can have a play with some of my free tools there, which are, the more simple ones. So, yeah, that's probably the best thing.
Perfect.
Just send me a message and I'll have a conversation.
Thank you so much. And listeners, AI is growing and it's important. And also there is always place for human coaches, which is why we wrote the book. Just a little plug there for the human behind the coach. Thank you, Lisa, for coming to the Coaching In. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we'd love you to share the podcast with a friend or leave a comment on social media. And if you'd like to become a regular at the Coaching In, you can subscribe on Podbean and all major podcast channels. We look forward to welcoming you next time. You've been listening to The Coaching In, 3D Coaching's virtual pub. For more information, check out 3dcoaching.com.